I'm Robert Cavuto, and today on Sonic Perspectives, I'm speaking with guitarist Gavin Hades of the Gavin Evick Band to discuss the origins of the band and to talk about their new anthemic single that just came out. Hey, congratulations and welcome. Thank you so much for taking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Great song, great band.
Thank you. We do what we can.
Now you're doing something right. You got the formula down, which is great.
Oh, we hope so.
Yeah. So tell me a little about the origins of the band. How did you form with Pete Evick's son, and how did it all come together?
Sure. So it's a funny story. So Pete and my dad Jeremy have been friends for something 25 years, something like that. It's around there. And Pete, when he used to come in and play with his band Evick before he was in Brett Michaels' band, we're from Ocean City. So
Okay.
he would come to Ocean City and he would play, and him and my dad ended up forming a friendship. Long story short, about 2021-ish, Pete gives my dad a call and he's like, "Hey, um, me and my singer are in town. We want to come and see your new restaurant." And so he calls, and the first day he called, I don't think it ended up working out. But the next day they were supposed to be leaving or something, so it wasn't going to happen. And he calls and he's like, "Hey, we're on the way." And me and my dad used to do landscaping together and stuff. And so we fishtail out of this driveway to get home and get a quick shower going. And we go and we hang out with him and Brett. And I'll never forget that whole experience. Um, and being the brave little 14-year-old that I was at the time, I showed Brett a video of me playing Talk Dirty to Me.
Very
And
cool.
they were getting ready to play OC Bike Fest a couple months later. And I'll never forget it for the rest of my time here. He looked right at Pete and he said, "Petey, can we get this kid up on stage with us?" And Pete said, "Absolutely." And I thought I was going to break down crying. I was like,
Oh my
"Keep it
God.
together." And so with that whole thing, I went and I played, and Gavin actually ended up being there with Pete. So that was the first time I met him. But at that time, he was starting to just get into the whole music thing. So about a year later, I got a phone call. Well, my dad actually got a phone call, and he was like, "Hey, my buddy wants you to be in his son's band." I was like, "Cool. Who is it?" And he was like, "Pete Evick, his son Gavin is starting a band. He wants you to be in it." Um, and so then it just kind of started like that. They had played a show originally without me being in the band, but then I guess they just wanted the two guitar sound, and that's just how it happened.
That sounds great. Yeah. Now, what I loved about the band was that, I'm an 80's guy, so I love that riff-driven, anthemic songs. And the new single, Young, Wild, and Free, really embodies that feel. Is everybody in the band have that same mindset and enjoy that same type of music?
Sure, the whole thing is Gavin always says this, and it's my favorite saying that he always says is when he's sad, he wants to put on music that makes him feel good. He doesn't want to put on sad songs to dwell in the emotions or and do whatever. And so our whole thing is that a lot of music today is kind of sad,
Yeah.
and it's fine. There's a place and a time for it. I listen to sad music. Everybody does it, but we wanted to make something to bring back the feeling of the 80's where everybody was just, it seemed like they were always happy and making good music. You jump in your car and Panama by Van Halen is playing, and it's just like, it's going to be a good day.
It's interesting too because, young kids don't really like the music that I grew up listening to, the Van Halen, the Kiss, the Motley Crue.
Sure.
They're more into rap, they're more into different aspects of music. What got you into that type of music that you love it so much? The sound.
It's hard. I don't know, just playing guitar and having to learn the riffs that, everybody starts out learning and everything, the Seven Nation Armies, the Smoke on the Waters.
Right.
I found that I don't know, just when I would listen to like Led Zeppelin, for example, or something, it made me feel something that other music didn't necessarily make me feel, and I knew that that's kind of what I liked and started to get into and stuff.
Well, you have an old soul, so that's pretty cool. I like
A
that.
lot of people say that.
If you're going far back as Led Zeppelin, yeah, that's
Yep.
so I grew up with all that in the 70's and then the 80's, the hair bands, the metal, hard rock that came along, and that's always been my passion, and that's what I do love. And that's your song fits perfectly into that. You do have a southern rock vibe too. Would you consider the band to be southern rock?
I wouldn't necessarily say Southern rock exactly. I think we draw from a lot of different elements in the
Mhm.
style of rock, where, some of our other stuff that we're working on is a little bit metal, rockier, heavier kind of stuff. I think we draw from a lot of different perspectives of rock and roll. And if you want to look at it from the perspective of a Southern rock kind of thing, we have the big harmonies, we have the big choruses, we have the big loud guitars, we have those qualities. I'd just say we're a rock band. I wouldn't necessarily put an exact label on it.
And the melody, you guys have, you nail melody, right?
Yep.
And that's, it's funny. The southern rock bands are now like what the bands in the '80s were like. They're the tight jeans. They look great on stage. They put on a show, and they have songs with tremendous melody and riffs. And it's
Sure.
kind of like they're the new. It shifted a little bit, and country's huge. I live in New Jersey. You know, the PNC Arena is always selling out with, when a country band plays
Yeah.
there. So
Absolutely.
way to go. Who are some of your musical influences?
This guy right here. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm
I can
wearing a
see it. I
Van
got mine
Halen
too.
necklace.
I didn't put mine on, but I got mine too. So yeah.
Oh,
I
right on.
Judas Priest and Van Halen. I don't know if you can see it. I
Right
didn't put
on.
it
There
on
you
today, but I
go.
got it right there.
But yeah, Eddie Van Halen, especially when I was starting out, was a very, very big influence on me. Um, I'll never forget watching that first video. I think it was like the US Open or
Oh yeah.
something, was one of the very first videos of Eddie Van Halen that I saw. And, it was his solo part. It was just a straight clip of his like 10-minute long solo part or something. And either like middle or beginning of the video, there's this time where he's at one end of the stage and he just takes off running down the stage and he's still playing and he's sliding on his knees. And I was just like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, I want to be exactly like that.
Is that what made you pick up the guitar?
No, actually. So the what made me pick up the guitar is a very, very funny story. So I actually hated the guitar for the
Wow.
first couple years of my life up until I was like 10 years old. So it was Christmas and I didn't get my mom anything for Christmas. And my dad is a guitarist, so he was like, "Why don't you learn how to play a song for her on the ukulele?" And I was like, "That seems like the easiest thing to do." So I learned Jingle Bells, and I was like, man, I kind of like this. And my dad had been rooting my whole entire life for me to learn how to play the guitar, but I just wasn't interested in it at all. Um, and then a couple months later, I was just like, he had this black SG, and I was like, you mind if you show me a few chords on that thing? And so we worked out some deal where he showed me some stuff, and I ended up liking it. And he was like, if you learn how to play the guitar, I'll give this to you.
Wow.
And I was like, deal. And he gave it to me that day, and I started playing, and I kind of just never stopped.
It's nice incentive, right?
Yeah, oh no, definitely.
It's also great to be able to play, but how did it develop? How did you find your own style? So anybody could play, but you have to find your own style. And I think you and the band have that. So tell me a little about how it developed and how you found it.
It's hard to describe, everything I do is based off of energy. And I think that shows in our set and the songs that we write and everything. And the things that I do in my personal life, everything is based off of energy. So, I've never really sat down like, man, I gotta find my own style. I can't just be Eddie Van Halen or Jason Becker on stage all the time.
Right.
Um, it all comes like that in my head, whatever I'm doing. I've never really sat down and focused on being one thing or another.
That's perfect. And it's a melting pot too. You take all of that and it just kind of comes out. You opened up for Trickster, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Steve is a good friend of mine, Steve Brown.
Really? Right
Yeah,
on. He's a great guy.
he's a great guy. He's a huge Eddie Van Halen fan. And
So
we've been friends since like he was 13 and I was like 18. And he just loves Eddie. He knew Eddie obviously pretty well too. So if you ever go on tour with him again, you guys have a lot of similarities with the musical styles, the musical sounds, and the history. So he's a
yeah,
good guy to connect with.
Steve is great. Ever since I met him, he's treated me and the whole band and everything just with such great respect and everything. He's just one of the best guys.
He is. He's a really nice guy. Hell of a good guy. Let's talk a little bit about guitar tone on the new song.
Sure.
It's very reminiscent of classic 80s with a modern twist to it. Was that the goal to capture that vibe?
It goes back to that whole thing of it's just what I've always listened to. I don't think I went in with a specific mindset of like, this is how I want it to sound. It's just how I sound
Mhm.
at this point. It wasn't really a thing that I sat down and did.
Wow, that's pretty good. And what about your practice regimen? Do you practice a lot, practicing every day?
So over COVID times, I was playing guitar 8 hours a day, no
Yeah.
less. I would go over that quite a bit, but no less than 8 hours every day. And now I don't really have a specific practice routine. I'm just always playing, whether
Yeah.
I'm playing shows or I'm writing or I'm learning a song, I just always have a guitar in my hands.
Going to the bathroom, going to bed, it's always with you.
Never gone to the bathroom yet, but I have taken it to the dinner table and I have fallen asleep with it.
Did you see that Two and a Half Men episode where Eddie Van Halen is with
Yep,
Charlie and
yep,
Eddie
I
comes out of
have.
the bathroom? He goes, we'll never know when inspiration is going to hit.
Yep.
Oh, that's very cool. Your song's getting a lot of airplay, radio airplay. How does that feel being so young and having that such great exposure so early on?
It's amazing. The big thing with me is having people say that they truly like the song
Yeah.
and they like what it stands for and all of that, because all I've ever wanted is to make stuff that resonates with people, that can either get you through a hard time or make you feel like you're having fun when, you know, maybe life isn't giving you too much of a fun time right now. And it's really great seeing the reception of the song and everything, and see it doing so well.
Have you heard it actually in the car, or do you know when it's coming on? Or I always
I haven't heard it, play in the car yet, but I have listened to every single station that's played it.
did
So
they tell you what time it's going to go on roughly, or is it just a surprise?
it's mostly a surprise. There's been a time where Pete will text the group chat or something, and he'll be like, "Song's coming on at blah 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 and blah blah blah," and I'll run to wherever I gotta listen to it.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, it's got to be a tremendous experience to do that. Um, how many songs has the band? I guess. Well, let me start off by asking: is the band working on an album, and how many songs have you guys written?
So I wouldn't say we're necessarily working to get songs together for an album. We just write stuff.
Okay,
As far as recorded right now, we've only been in the studio for, favorite song. That was before my time in the band.
right.
And now Young, Wild, and Free. So those are the only two that the band has recorded and done.
Yep.
But we're working on some stuff that I think we're all super proud of, and to release and everything. I wouldn't say an album is coming soon, but I would say it's on the horizon for sure.
Yeah, a lot of bands too. There's different approaches to albums, EP, just releasing singles. So I guess that's something you guys have to ultimately work on. What's the best approach for you?
Sure.
And what's your touring like? What's your schedule coming up for touring?
So we play in Manassas for a festival. I forget the name of it. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
On July 5th, and we're really looking forward to that
Wow.
because supposedly it's a great time. Apparently they shut the roads down. They do this whole thing. They set up a stage. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then July 16th we open up for Night Ranger,
Wow.
very very close to my hometown. So that show means everything to me because all of my family is able to come out and see what I've actually been working towards. Um, and then July 18th, we leave and we actually go to Vegas to
Wow.
play a show with the Ratchet Dolls at Count Vamped Bar and Grill. And
Yep.
then the next day, we go to LA to play the Whiskey with Faster Pussycat. And both of those shows are just our dreams come true 100%. And we're really looking forward to it.
Well, it's great. It's the summer. Are you still going? Did you graduate? Are you out of school? Or how do you
So
balance?
I've been homeschooled my whole
Okay.
life, so it's a little different for me. But right now I'm out so that I can focus on kind of everything.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well,
Yep.
listen, I think you got a great head on your shoulders, and I wish you the most success. Don't ever change. You seem like a really nice guy. Always sign the autographs, right?
Yep. Yes, sir. That's right.
So listen, thank you so much. I wish you the best. And when you do have more songs, I hope we could talk more down the road. Whether it's an EP or an album, it'd be great to catch up with you again.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. Thank you so much for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much. You have a great day.
You too, Rob. Thank you very much.